Now, the interim government of Bangladesh completed 100 days on 15th November. No grand celebrations were held, no big speeches were made either. An uneasy calm prevails in the country's capital, Dhaka. The city saw a pitched battle between the police and protesters in the months leading up to the overthrow of the government of the day. The so-called revolution is over, but protests are taking place more than ever in Dhaka. Non-stop demonstrations have been reported from the Secretariat building, the administrative nerve center of Bangladesh's government. Government Land Office employees hold a protest for higher pay and benefits. Some want protection for Sufi religious shrines. Others, such as garment workers, hold a protest over unpaid wages. Elsewhere, protesters hold a torch procession in Dhaka on 31st October to demand better treatment of minorities in the country following a sedition charge against 19 people. The procession is led by the Bangladesh United Minority Alliance after the 19 allegedly disrespected the Bangladesh national flag in the city of Chittagong. The protesters want withdrawal of the charges against the 19, who included Chinmoy Krishnadas Brahmachari, the divisional organizing secretary of ISKCON, a Hindu religious movement. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, has called for minority protection and a national process of truth and healing. The National Crisis Group is an NGO based in Belgium. It has released a report titled A New Era in Bangladesh, the First 100 Days of Reform. It says that the Bangladesh government led by Muhammad Yunus should balance demands for justice with the need for reconciliation, all the time staying within the bounds of the Constitution in order to mitigate the danger of its decisions being invalidated later. It says that the government should seek to hold fresh elections under a reformed polling system within a realistic time frame, which should not extend beyond 18 months. The report cautions that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Bangladesh to improve governance and put checks and balances in place that would stop an autocratic regime from emerging. It warns that if the interim government falters, the country could revert to the status quo ante or worse, enter a period of military rule. The message is clear. Yunus should avoid staying in power for too long, and he should build a consensus among political parties, because both experience and history show that the longer an interim government stays in power, the more the doubts about its legitimacy grow. So, managing, let alone meeting public expectation will be challenging for the government. Already cracks are emerging between the Bangladesh Nationalist Party and the Yunus-led Interim Government. The BNP wants an early election, but the interim government is not willing to play ball. Thousands of BNP supporters rallied in Dhaka on 8th November demanding an early election. The friends turned frenemies are no longer singing from the same hymn sheet. It's all the more shocking because it was the interim government that released BNP chief Khaleda Zia from house arrest and acquitted her of corruption charges. The BNP fears the Yunus-led interim government is in no mood to hold an election and that it wants to extend its rule in perpetuity. The BNP wants to avoid a repeat of 2006 when an army-controlled caretaker government stayed beyond its mandated 3 months and delayed the election by about 2 years, only to bring Sheikh Hasina back to power. Things have come to such a pass that the BNP is opposing, yes, you heard that right, opposing the interim government's proposal to ban its arch-rival, the Awami League. The BNP also suspects that the interim government might toy with the idea of reviving a -2 formula, which was invoked by some governments in the past to keep the two Begums away, Khaleda Zia and Sheikh Hasina. The BNP is suspicious of the motives of student leaders, academics and others who want to delegitimize the party for their vested interests. The BNP has time and again voiced its frustration over the lack of a roadmap for a transition to democracy. Its Secretary General Mirza Fakhrul Islam Alamgir has called on the interim government to open talks with political parties and hold an election within a quote-unquote reasonable time. Now, would it be okay if an election was held after, say, 2 or 3 years? No, he doesn't think people will accept that. Thomas Keane, an analyst with the National Crisis Group, says cracks are emerging in the fragile alliance that catapulted Yunus to power. He says that for now, Yunus and his colleagues have widespread support, but popular expectations are double-edged. For his part, Yunus is begging the country's patience.
I am not sure how much reform we will be able to make, but I promise you, if you give us the opportunity, we will complete some mandatory reforms and then go for the highly sought-after election we all are looking for. I would request you to keep patience till then. We want to create an exemplary electoral system that can be followed for years. It will save our country from annual political crisis. To ensure these, I am asking for the necessary time from you.
The government has since appointed a new Chief Election Commissioner and 4 other commissioners. Yunus says a roadmap for the next election would be unveiled after electoral reforms are completed, but he won't give a date for the election. Now, Bangladesh's Constitutional Reform Commission has to submit its recommendations to the government by 31st December. 5 other reform commissions are also likely to submit their reports by the end of December. Now, Bangladesh has long struggled with political instability and military influence. In its 53 years of independence, the country has faced 29 attempted military coups, starting with the first in 1975, just 4 years after its independence. Bangladesh appears to be heading towards not only a political reset, but also a constitutional overhaul. The country's Attorney General Muhammad Yunus has suggested removing the word secular from the constitution because 90% of Bangladesh's population follows Islam. So, are the fears of Bangladesh becoming an Islamic state genuine? How will the proposed changes to the constitution impact the country's minorities? Will Hindus be safe? Will the interim government stay true to its promise of holding an election? And will the military continue to watch from the sidelines or take matters into its own hands? Now, how much power the army is willing to cede in favor of the Yunus-led interim government will be critical to ensuring a peaceful democratic transition. As things stand now, an early election is not likely. Yunus has said that the timing of the election is a political decision, that people will decide how long the interim government will remain in power. Clearly, Bangladesh again stands at a familiar crossroads. Many are celebrating what they call a third independence, but there are others who are cautiously optimistic. They are wary of the recurring sounds of military boots echoing through the corridors of power in Dhaka.